Hello, hello, hello. Cheers, everyone. How is everybody doing? I hope everyone is doing well. Hope everyone's enjoying their Friday, getting into the weekend. So I'm here with Real Siberius. We're going to do our weekly little breakdown here, weekly discourse. Take a look at all the stuff and talk about our takeaways from the classic games that we watched this week, which was crazy fun.
Yeah, excited to be here. I look forward to doing these every week and addressing some of these points, reacting to some great content that some others have made. So yeah, let's get into it.
Hell yeah. So from as far as takeaways go from our classic games night, our refugee games, as we now call them. But yeah, this week we did the 96 Eastern Conference Finals Game 4. Bulls sweep the Magic. Shaq's last game in a Magic uniform. Jordan's 45-point, just incredible performance. And yeah, it was awesome. It was a great game. It was absolutely outstanding. For anyone who doesn't know, we've started doing, as of yesterday, we are now doing weekly classic games watch parties. So y'all can come and watch it with us. You don't have to download anything or do anything for that. We built a game cast and we have it all synced up so you can just watch both at the same time and enjoy the chat, enjoy the commentary, and enjoy real basketball.
Yeah, I hope everybody joins us. We had an absolutely fantastic time. I think it went incredibly well. I think people really enjoyed it. I think people especially really enjoyed watching real competitive basketball.
I think so, man. I think we had a lot of comments. A lot of people seemed to just be blown away. And my favorite one was actually we had a viewer who had never actually seen any games from that era before. It was their first time watching like an old school game like that and seeing Michael Jordan live and all that kind of stuff. And that was kind of an awesome thing to see. Their reaction to that.
I mean, they were blown away, like everyone is, when they finally get to actually watch Jordan play in a game. It's not just highlights. I think they were really captivated, engaged by what was happening on the court.
Yeah, and part of what I loved about that game, part of what part of the selection process on that game too was that was not a particular. You don't see anything from that game on any of the big highlight reels. That's not one of the like, oh my God, Space Jam montage kind of things. That's just good, solid basketball from everybody. And it still looks like that. It's still just like Jesus, smooth with it. And Penny Hardaway, unbelievably smooth, childhood hero. He was one of my favorites.
Well, yeah, Shaq throwing it down, for being such a big guy, showing some hustle. And
footwork and the grit,
and competing.
So my big takeaway from those games, the thing that I want to that it made me think about a lot was actually two things. But the first big one was the sort of self accountability that these guys had, whether they won or lost, whether they were swept or not. Going into that, they were down 3-0. And Shaq's whole mission, the Magic's whole mission at that point was strictly to not get swept. Ultimately, they got swept, but they did not play like they had accepted that fate.
Not at all.
And they were interviewed about it, and they specifically even said, we're unlikely. It's going to be almost impossible to come back from this and, defeat the Bulls and move on. But I think Shaq said it best that he just couldn't live with himself for the summer if they didn't at least not get swept, if they didn't take one, and he couldn't live with himself. So that's just, that's crazy. But, and then all the Magic were playing like that all the way to the very last whistle. But after the game, they were even asking Scottie Pippen, they sat down with him at the booth at the table. And they were asking him about, how it went and stuff and about his sort of offensive struggle because he went, I think he was shooting like 35% from the field. It just, wasn't a good night.
Yeah,
And all he
and
had to all he had to say about it was just immediately humble that, yeah, it wasn't my night. We were really struggling. The rest of us were struggling offensively. We weren't, we just didn't have it tonight. But thankfully, Jordan was able to sort of carry that offense for this game. And the reason he specified this game is because the prior games, the first three games, was an enormous performance from everybody off the bench, all the other starters. Kukoc got six man that year. Kukoc was outstanding.
absolutely.
Harper playing legendary defense. Rodman getting like everybody. So the sort of accountability that these guys had, that even when they win, like win or lose, even when they win, there's still immediately just like, here are the things that I could have done better. Or here and before the game, here are the things that we need to do better. Here's the things that I personally need to do better if we want to do well in tonight's game. And man, you just don't hear that anymore.
Well, no, and that's actually a perfect segue into my biggest takeaway from the game was when they were interviewing Jordan at the end of the game after they had already won. It was all about we and team.
Yeah.
I don't think he said I once, and he specifically shouted out his role players and his teammates for delivering in the previous games. And he acknowledged that they weren't delivering this game, but he wasn't accusing them. He wasn't throwing them under the bus. He said, I had the opportunity to step up and deliver so we could take this win. But they were doing their job. There was never any dismissal of their accomplishments, of their contribution to that game, even though they may not have been playing at their best or as good as they had played in the previous three games. They were still doing their job. He was basically acknowledging, I can't do it on my own. I need these guys here. They put me in a position where I could take over the game offensively. Just absolute respect for how everyone on that court handled themselves, as far as it would be embarrassing for us to lose, so we're going to put in a Herculean effort even if we can't win this series, to the winners saying everyone played great, we did a good job, we played as a team. I don't know, that's the things that I miss about sports.
Yeah, I think so. So I think that was the biggest takeaway. That was actually my other big takeaway, was how much props not only them but also the announcers and the media guys were given to all the teammates all around, showing them on the screen all the time. So I thought that was amazing to see. So next week we'll have two more games. We'll do Tuesday night and Thursday night. For everybody who enjoyed that, I had a lot of fun doing it. So I'm really glad that that everybody else did as well. Lynetta pointed this out in the chat. That's giving your teammates confidence. That's right. I think so. I think that's the kind of leadership that gets everybody going, even when even when it's tough, or even when someone's having a bad night. They know that everybody's sort of around them, and everybody, no one's going to be underappreciated or completely unappreciated in that. So, it's just cool. It's cool to see that. It's a huge contrast point. But moving into this week's news, also shout out to Anthony Sanchez. Good to see you again. What's up, Real Siberius Pineapple Midrange in chat? Hello. Good to see you.
Appreciate you joining us.
So getting into the news, aside from the takeaways from that stuff, let's start with we want to start with SGA. You want to start with LeBron's hurt feelings? SGA.
Now let's start with SGA. Let's start on a
yeah. So I've noticed
on LeBron because we kind of have to.
Agreed. So the SGA stuff this week, which it almost feels like it's been more than a week, doesn't it? I feel like they got swept, and immediately the narrative started shifting. Immediately the discourse started shifting to all like LeBron's future and what he's done for LA. Now the scrutiny on what he actually did for LA and how that run went, how that tenure went there, and what it was worth and stuff. So it almost feels like it was weeks ago. It's like everybody forgot about the actual series and how the actual play went in the series
and what the outcome was. Yeah, absolutely.
So I've seen a lot of stuff this week. It seems to be a big thing of debating whether or not SGA is in fact flopping, or is he in fact foul baiting. which, you know, has always been a thing since, you know, since OKC's been winning and since, especially since his MVP. You know, I think it's been a thing about all that, but I was surprised. I was extremely personally surprised to see JJ Redick get up on a microphone and talk about that, and, you know, complain about foul baiting and stuff during the series and afterwards, and, you know, guys from the Lakers talking about that, and, you know, sort of the Lakers people talking about that, talking, you know, the media talking about that. Like, I was really shocked, and I was shocked for two reasons. I was shocked, number one, because if anybody, you know, didn't catch it, please, you know, shameless plug, please feel free to go watch my latest video, all about flopping and foul baiting in the league and how the league protects it, how the refs are incentivized to not do anything about it, and how the teams voted for it and stuff. But the really impressive part to me is to hear JJ Redick or anybody from the Lakers organization complaining about it. To me, is insane when the Lakers themselves, the GM of the Lakers, has a seat on the committee that proposed the original paltry, toothless $5,000 fine and proposed lowering that $5,000 fine to $2,000. And the Lakers have voted every single time to pass that, to protect that. So to hear anybody from the Lakers organization go and complain is just literally, that's a fan thing. Fans want to complain about that. Yeah, I think fans, you know, have every right to complain about that and to debate that. But as an organization, you voted for this. You proposed the rules. You proposed the fine. You proposed it over the advice of David Stern, who specifically said that that wouldn't do anything.
And he was right.
So it's,
real quick, shout out to Geloso and Timothy Miller for joining the chat. Thank you guys for joining us.
Hey, welcome back. Good to see y'all again. But yeah, I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. I just could not believe that anybody officially from the Lakers was going to complain about something that they voted for and they proposed the lack of consequences for.
Yeah.
So if it's not true, that's fine. Then they're just wrong for complaining at all. But if it is true, if you believe that it is true, then you should be extremely mad that they themselves voted for that and proposed it.
For sure.
Like that's insane. So the details of that are in the latest video. I highly encourage you to go watch it. It's really just crazy to look at, to see. And it wasn't just, I'm calling out the Lakers because they're on camera, complaining about this, but these were unanimous votes, people.
Right.
30-0. All 30 teams voted for this, repeatedly vote to protect this. And then you get on the other side where, the ref's office and Adam Silver, who reports to that same board of governors, out there issuing points of emphasis for every season, and for 16 seasons straight, flopping only appears one time. One time. Out of 16 years, one time have the refs been directed to pay attention to that or do anything about it. And even when they did, not a whole lot happened either. I mean, I think they called like 2.
Well, sure. And it seems like that them telling them to focus on that has also been changed, because clearly they're not focusing on it anymore. So they acknowledged it once and immediately backpedaled and were like, whoa, okay, we can't have them focusing on that. That would be bad for everyone.
Yeah, it was from 2004 to 2025. So the 2024 playoffs and then the entirety of the 24-25 season was the only time that it was actually on their points of emphasis.
And then, like you pointed out, what they had 2 incidents of them actually acknowledging it or like putting out the fine, even if that happened.
And even then, both those players make, whatever, I think it's like $7 or $8 million. I think are their contracts make $7 or $8 million per year. So you find them $2,000. $2,000.
That's not even a slap on the wrist. That's
it's unbelievable. But they voted for this. They proposed it. So the balls to get on camera and complain about it, I think, is wild. But then on the media side of it, I have 2 problems with it. Number one, as we discussed last week, just the outright lies that, Luka brought this into the league, or Luka taught LeBron how to flop, or any of this stuff. Like, these people were fined the first rule. It had gotten so bad by 2012 that they made a rule in 2012. And from 2012, 2014, LeBron James, Chris Bosh, D Wade, Lance Stevenson. I mean, just Tony Parker. All these guys were fined for flop. Like that's. I mean, guys, it got so bad that they put in a rule 4 years before Luka even, I think, spoke English.
Yeah.
Like, let alone join the NBA, join the league. Like he was still in Spain. Like I don't, like I don't want to hear it. But aside from this, the outright lies. What bothers me is that you're the media. Why do I have a YouTube video talking about how the Lakers and how the league voted for this and how they lowered the fine? How is that not something that is discussed by professional journalists and professional sports analysts and league insiders and these people who are plugged into this stuff? Like, it's so disgusting to me that that is not discussed, that they don't mention that or bring that up. They're just like, wow, we have no idea why this is happening. Like, what do you mean you have no idea why this is happening? Because the league that you cover for a living, that 24 hours a day is your job for $100 million in a contract, voted for that. Like, do we have to be showing them? Do we have to be educating them on what happened in the NBA? Like, it's sick. It's crazy to me. Not a single one in the media has talked about that or shown that. So I think that's, yeah. So fans want to argue about it. I hope that fans will also, turn their attention to the fact that the Lakers not only were on the committee, on the very limited seat committee that proposed not doing anything about it, but also voted to specifically not do anything about it for the last 14 years.
For sure.
16 years, pardon me, 16 years they voted for this. Unanimously, they have voted to protect this behavior. So I hope fans can know that, but it also bothers me that the media is not telling fans about that. And
Absolutely
haven't for the
not.
last 16 years, haven't said anything about it. It's crazy.
They're voting for their self-interests, not against their self-interests. That they can't say flopping is bad. Their team is egregiously bad at it. Like,
yeah.
Shout out to M Hunter Stevie. Thank you for joining us.
Welcome in, M Hunter Stevie. It is good to see you. Good to see you again.
I'm just always baffled that we just constantly see the same names, that people just keep coming back. It fucking blows my mind.
It's surreal every time. I don't know if I'll ever get used to it.
Nope. I don't think I will.
But yeah, we will be talking. We will be talking a little bit about that, about why they're not and that kind of thing. But regardless of everybody's individual incentives and stuff, it's just disgusting that they don't. And it's obviously it's ridiculous then that you would assume they would know this. I don't know if they do or not, but if they don't, that is the grossest incompetence ever. And if they do, then that's outright corrupt. But then the balls to not only not say anything about it, but to pretend that it's any other reason, to pretend that like it's Luka who brought it in 4 years after it had already become such a problem that they did anything.
For sure.
So like at a certain point, you have to assume that, they always say, never assume malice when incompetence will do. But at a certain point, you have to start assuming malice. Like at a certain point, it's both.
Both things can be true. It
Yeah.
can be incompetence and malice. That's you can't rule that off the table.
So I think that's wild. I'm not much of a, clip downloader and all that. I'm not, I'm still working on it. Still working on my, editing skills to be able to do that stuff. But I mean, there are literally clips of some of these talking heads talking about the fines, talking about, the flopping back before Luka entered the league. And now you hear the same ones saying that Luka brought it in, or Luka taught LeBron after he had been fined for it. So that's
he apparently taught him before they ever played together and before he was in the league.
It's fascinating. It's truly,
it boggles.
It boggles the mind, doesn't it?
Shout out to Binary Bard 64. Thank you for joining us. Glad to have you here.
Welcome back. Welcome back, sir. So yeah, that's I think that's the craziest part. That's the craziest part of all that to me. But yeah, so that's my sort of thing on SGA is I just really want to highlight that whether you think he's flopping or not, whether you think he's foul baiting or not, every team in the league voted for this behavior, voted to protect this behavior for 16 years. And the Lakers themselves were on the committee that proposed what to do about it, proposed the paltry $5,000 fine, and proposed reducing it to $2,000. So to fix it, you need to have the league, vote, like you said, they need to vote against their own interest. They need to vote against their own roster construction. They need to vote against their own team strategies. It's well over 20 teams, and that's how much you need to pass a vote anyway. So at this point, it's very similar to, it's almost like, watching politics in deep suspense. What do you think? Will Congress vote to give themselves a raise or not? Like, what do you think? Like, they're the ones who vote. Like, of course they're going to vote that way. Like,
For sure.
so, and yet, we're supposed to be surprised and like, well, maybe the league will do something. No, it's unanimous. It's 30-0 in there. Shout out to John Freeman. What's up, agents and chat? Good to see you. Welcome back.
Good to have you back. Always glad to have all of you guys back again and again and again.
Yeah. But so it's crazy stuff. So if you haven't watched it, please go watch it. I go into more of the details on exactly how that committee works and how the board of governors works and how the ref incentives work and why that is. But yeah, so that being a narrative this week and that being, primarily promoted by the Lakers organization itself, JJ Redick getting on a microphone. It's like, you need to get on a microphone. You need to go upstairs, talk to Jeannie Buss, talk to the GM, talk to Palenka. Like, don't go on TV and complain about this. Go to your own organization.
Yeah, that's not where the problem's coming from.
Yeah, and it's not like he doesn't know. I mean, these rosters are optimized for exactly this behavior. So, like, I mean, are you not aware of your own roster? Like, are you not aware, like, of your own, like, come on, it's crazy.
Well, and it all comes down to passing blame. And to shelfishly plug my own most recent video, I talk about how everybody likes to excuse their behavior and absolve their guilt by saying, well, so-and-so's doing it. Well, so-and-so's doing it. Well, that doesn't negate the fact that you're doing it also.
Yep.
At what point in our society did pointing a finger at somebody else relinquish you of blame? It doesn't work that way. Like, is SGA flopping? Yeah, I think that he is. I was going to say, is it disgusting? Yeah, it is. And they shouldn't, the Thunder shouldn't be able to say, well, the Lakers do it. And the Lakers shouldn't be able to say, well, the Thunder do it. Well, you fucking both do.
Right. And what I want the media to say is that the Lakers and OKC both voted for this to be allowed.
Yes.
Yes. It doesn't matter which one is right. They both voted for it. Somebody's lying. They both voted for it. And they both have seats on the committee that proposed the rule. So, like, it's crazy. It's wild to me. I do love when that comes around in, like, sort of our sort of little neighborhood of YouTube too. Because the implication, right? I mean, we can just break this down real quick. The implication there is that, any of us or that, anybody is hypocritical for being upset about that with LeBron, but then giving SGA a free pass if he's doing it. And it's just like, you clearly are not familiar with this side of YouTube if you think that anybody has given LeBron a free pass on that behavior, or Austin Reeves a free pass, or Rui giving a free pass, or the Lakers in general, or any other team, right? Like, people have been complaining about this for over a decade, for 16 years, for 18 years now. It was going on. It started really around I had a fantastic comment. I'd love to pull it up at some point. But we were talking about 2006 to 2012, how bad flopping got that they even tried to make a little $5,000 fine for it. It's like, people have been complaining about this for a long time. If you think that, like, oh, it's hypocritical because you don't complain when anybody else does it. Like, we've complained when every single person does it. We've stopped watching the games on account of it. So, like, I don't know where you think that's coming from. Like, nope, it's remarkably consistent.
And again, not to selfishly plug my most recent video, but that's another thing that I talk about, is two things can be true at the same time. Is SGA flopping? Yes. However, oh my God, I completely lost my fucking train of thought. My brain.
Oh, you're saying two things true at the same time, that SGA.
No, I know, but I had a point with it and it completely, I talk about it in my video, but it's basically, it boils down to two people can be wrong doing the same thing. And it
Yeah.
never seems, nobody seems to look at it that way. I don't, if I'm pointing it out because LeBron is doing it and I'm not talking about SGA doing it, I'm not absolving him of his guilt. It's just that LeBron is doing it at such a more egregious level, or not even to use those two, but just always using that example of, if one person does this thing one time and the other individual does it 10 times, and I'm talking about the person that does it 10 times, it doesn't mean I'm not holding that other person accountable that did it once. It just means it's so egregious on the other end that merits more discussion than the individual that did it the one time.
Yeah, I think the bigger deal is the fact that there's a lot of criticism and debate, and that's become a controversy around SGA. And yet, since 2010, since 2009, it has not been much of a controversy. Certainly not in the media about it for LeBron. Like they're not talking about that. Like the man has been fined for it. The man has been actually fined for it. He's one of the few players to receive an actual fine for it because he did it in the Eastern Conference Finals. Which had too much visibility to not fine him. And yet they want to say that, oh, well, he just learned if he doesn't do it. And if he does do it, he learned it from Luka. It's just like, okay, sure. That's fine. Like, I mean, the man was fined for it. I don't know. Broken record at this point.
I mean, if anything, that's unequivocal guilt.
Yeah,
if you've been fined for it, there's no dispute. You did it. I don't know.
I think at this point, people are not really mad about the thing as much as they are about the double standards with.
I think that's exactly it. For sure.
But, and then they want to try to claim that there's double standard the other way, when in reality, everybody, or at least all the, more disillusioned fans, are holding the exact same standard. Everybody stop doing this, please. But that was what was nice to see in the Magic Bulls game. It was nice to see them all staying on their feet. In 1996, everybody was on their feet, and if they fell off their feet, they got up immediately and kept playing and hustled back and kept moving. So,
and they weren't throwing themselves on the ground. Like Jordan fell down once because he, got bumped by Shaq. Anybody's falling down, they get bumped by Shaq. And then he immediately got right back up. Or they were diving for balls. Like, I think I counted 3 incidents where somebody was laying on the ground.
Yep.
A few quick shout outs. Shout out to Speedy Eagle. Thank you for joining us. And Millhouse Millard 2140. Thank you for joining us, guys.
Indeed. It's good to see you guys back.
I also, that comment that you had up on the screen, we should absolutely acknowledge that. That was a great comment.
Yep. That's the next thing. That's why it's on there. But M. Hunter Stevie says, to me, flopping is another of these nebulous, inconsistent rules that the league and refs can use to subtly influence game results for gambling interests.
It's true.
Yeah, I mean, it provides an endless amounts of opportunity, and I'll go into it a little bit, just a little bit, but it is on my video. I expand on that a little bit more. The problem with the rule is that it requires the ref to judge intent. It's the idea that they have to be intentionally trying to get the foul, to intentionally sort of deceive the referee is the way the rule works. And the problem with that is that on review, so I put it in there, but just super quick, refs are reviewed. They're sort of grading system. There's a ref review board. It's about 15 people. And interestingly, none of them are actual refs. They're not pro referees. They're just various basketball experts. That's about all we know about it. They're super secretive about this. You can go try to look it up. I'm not like trying to, go look it up. See if you can find any more information. Let me know. But they've always been very, closed off about that stuff.
Right.
But regardless, so there's about 15 people in there. They're not professional referees, and these are the guys who review the calls, and they grade the umpires. Umpires receive a grade, and then based on their review, based on their sort of report card, that's what determines who gets the big assignments, who gets to be the referees of playoff games, who gets to be the referees in the NBA Finals. All that sort of stuff is decided based on how good the different umpires are, and how to determine how good a referee is through this grading system. So the grading system that they do is mostly based around 3 factors. They're based around, they get an A for correct calls, like calls that they make that are correct, obviously get an A, good job. Then they get obviously an F for a call that they make that is clearly incorrect. And then in the middle, you have sort of a neutral, less weighted thing where it's mostly neutral, where it's correct or incorrect if they called or didn't call it, based on what the ref could reasonably see or reasonably determine at the time in real time that they made the call. The problem with that is twofold. Number one, that only grades calls that they actually make. So not calling something is not penalized as much as calling something incorrectly. So that already incentivizes you to make less calls in the first place, unless you really think it's clear, or it's part of the points of emphasis that that the league is telling you, that Adam Silver and the senior vice president guy McCutcheon is telling you to call. So other than that, you want to kind of stay away from the other calls more often if you want a higher grade, without being too aggressive. But either way, the other problem with it that I have that I think makes this sort of possible is if your standard for flopping is based on the intent of the player, you can always argue that you couldn't discern for sure the intent of the player. And the review board can always sort of come back at you if you do call it, to say, well, okay, what he did might be a flop, but we don't know if that was intentional. And they could overrule you and give, they could overrule you as a ref and give you a negative mark for having called it. So if your playoff assignments and your bigger paychecks, your bonuses, your NBA finals assignments, if all those things that come with more money are based on this grading system, you are completely incentivized to never call this ever. You're never going to risk losing those assignments or losing those checks. And the union is not going to push you to do it either, in a system where calling it has all of the risk and not calling it has all the reward.
Well, right. And I feel like the NBA resides in that ambiguity.
Yeah. But that just creates an infinity amount of opportunities then to call or not call these things. And that leads to, I think, the incredibly low trust that generates these kinds of thinking, this kind of gambling interests, or, all the nefarious, outcomes that you can have with that. I think that's what gives rise to it, is you have this secretive review board that has incentivized not calling it.
Absolutely.
Like, that's I just think that's the kind of rot, that's the kind of structural rot that I really get into, and that gets me really impassioned and motivated.
No, I completely agree. And the referee's only consistency is their inconsistency. And they can, because of that ambiguity, that's where they can live. And they can look back at, previous games for, how many ever decades and say, well, this is how we've always been doing it. But it isn't. It's not how you've always been doing it. You're relying on words like intent, which how the hell do you decipher somebody's intent? I mean, without asking them specifically, which obviously they're not doing. It just makes more sense. Well, because I don't know their intent, I can't call that justifiably.
Yep.
That's disgusting.
It is, but that's the structure they have. That's the structure they have. That's sort of how the workings of that are. And that's just on the ref side. Again, I really hope that you guys will check out the video to go kind of more into that and talk about the league side of it, because that's just as gross. But yeah, there's no help coming from the refs ever. I don't see, unless it goes on the points of emphasis somehow. But even there, just watch the video. I don't want to do the whole thing again for everybody. I don't want to. For those who have already watched it.
Highlighted that comment because I was just going to bring it up.
Yeah, but it's crazy. But so that's my that's my sort of view on the SGA. I don't know. I don't want to call it drama, but the debate around SGA or the Lakers and all that stuff is that the Lakers should not be on camera talking about that when they voted for it, and they're on the committee that proposed lowering the fine. Again, it's not just proposed a crappy fine. They proposed a crappy fine, and then they proposed lowering the crappy fine to an even crappier fine. And so to get on TV and complain and like, oh, people are doing the behavior that we voted to lower the fine on. Like, no, absolutely really? Ridiculous. Are they? That's crazy. That's breaking news. Like, who could have possibly predicted such an outcome? Like, so it's wild to me. But yes, I do want to get to this. At Lost No More brings up a fantastic point here. Hey, Pineapple, have you noticed after ESPN ended their and one TV deal, the NBA started to allow players to dribble like if they were playing street ball? Yes, I have noticed that. That is actually on my topic list. I'm extremely glad. This week was flopping. That is coming. Don't you worry about carrying and travels and all that stuff. Yes, the N1 TV deal. See, this is fantastic. This is the kind of sort of thinking that I'm hoping that my channel will attract and will propagate out into the universe of people going and looking at sort of the root incentives of each and every one of these things and see how it works. But yeah, and before that N1 TV deal, if everybody remembers, what's his face that ref got was upset, didn't like the culture change going on, didn't like AI, and started calling those carries and shut AI down, entirely. But then, it's crazy profitable, it's crazy popular. And so, they signed their N1 deal and now suddenly, carries are fine. And to some degree, you could argue the game evolves, dribbling evolves, like that's kind of fine. But from those days to now, that, I think sent a clear message and created a lot of incentives to allow it to continue getting worse and worse and worse. And now you can actually now it's not even carrying. You're not even doing like a cool street move. You know what I mean? Like how many times have we seen LeBron standing there, at the top of the key or, by half court with his hand underneath the ball, taking 2 steps with his hand underneath the ball, just kind of cradling it against his body, like he's carrying in the groceries or something, and then start dribbling again. And that's not a carry, and that's not a travel, and that's not a double dribble. That's not anything. It's like, okay, but that's not a street move. You can't blame that on like culture or like something flat, like, well, but from Rucker Park, like, no, that's just, you're just carrying groceries now. Like that's
so Binary Bard pointed out in the game we watched yesterday, even the announcers mentions how the refs allowed carrying more and more. It's true. It started back then. It's just become a parody now. Like it's no longer even basketball. Like you said, it's carrying in the groceries. It's not the same thing.
Yeah, that's not a stylistic change. That's not street ball or, street culture has, like street basketball culture or, the influence of, sort of the Rucker Park stuff. Like, no, absolutely not. That's not what it is. This is just lack of fundamental skills, lack of teaching fundamental skills, lack of need, right? Like you work on the fundamental skills that you need in order to succeed. If you no longer need them to succeed, then you're not going to work on them anymore. It's just, I think the logic is really that simple, or at least that's how I look at it. Again, always happy to be proven wrong, always happy to hear any contrary arguments. But to me, that is the logic. That's what makes sense. And I think that's what it shows.
Well, and one thing that I've always had a problem with, excuse me, in the NBA, they're changing the officiating, but not changing the rules. Like, I genuinely don't have a problem when they started to add dribbling like AI, like Isaiah Thomas, slightly allowing the more like dribbling on the side of the ball, because to me, it was aesthetically more pleasing to watch. But if they start to allow that, they need to change the rules. So there's a defined rule of what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. In the rule book, it says your hand still needs to be on the top of the ball at all times. That's obviously not the case anymore. So you need to change the rules. You can't just change the officiating. It doesn't work that way. There still needs to be a defined parameter of what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. And when you haven't changed the rules, but changed the officiating, there's still all of these question marks of, well, is that okay? Is this okay? Like they've slightly deviated the rules about the gather step, but they still haven't officially updated the rule to say this is exactly what the gather step is.
Yeah, but again, I put all of that structure. Who makes those rules? Who decides those rules? Who decides the interpretation of those rules? Who guides those every year? How those things actually make it down from the top down to the individual refs on the court. That's all in my last video. But that process has been so corrupted, I think, and the teams that sit on that committee to propose exactly these things are the teams that benefit the most by it. So
For sure.
I cannot imagine a universe where that improves until
No.
that structure is
No.
changed.
Absolutely. Oh, shout out to JW. Welcome back, man. Good to have you.
What's going on, JW? It's good to see you. So yeah, so that's where we're at. That's where I'm at with the SGA and LeBron stuff. So if nothing else, I think I'm good to move.
Yeah, let's move on.
Let's move here to let's go to hurt feelings, I think. Or do you want to save that for last? We can go to Paul. Actually, let's do basketball shows video first.
Yeah, let's talk about Paul. Let's talk about something positive.
Well, yeah, but also, well, I don't know how positive my take's going to be on this, but
Well, I mean,
yeah, I know what you mean. But I'm just saying. So let's go that so that that's fresh in everybody's mind as we tackle the LeBron stuff. So shout out to the basketball show, to us at the BBaller Show. Shout out to I'll never be able. He said very kind things about you and about me this week, that I am just incredibly honored that he knows even about my little channel here. But shout out to him. If anybody is not aware of his channel, go check him out. But he had a video this week where he just laid down. I mean, he just really laid it down. He went at ESPN and TNT and FS1 and all these groups for their sort of financial ties, their incentives for propping up the league, for highlighting modern stuff, for always celebrating the modern stuff, and for a lot of their takes and debates. And how at this point the only place to get actual meaningful analysis or meaningful discussions about it that have any integrity whatsoever is now on YouTube. It's now on YouTube. It's in podcasts. It's on independent creators. It's somehow this burden is now on the fans who do not get paid $100 million to do this, to instead discuss it using their own spare time. And it's such an amazing video. It's truly an incredible sort of rant. I mean, just a mic drop. So yeah, but my whole channel is about the economics and the incentives of this. So I have a lot to obviously to say about that. So you want to take your turn first, please feel free.
I did link the video in the comments and I did pin it. So if you guys have not seen that video, please absolutely go check it out. I absolutely have to shout out Paul from the basketball show. He has done so much for my channel, so much support for my channel. I cannot thank him enough. He continues to reach out and is offering insights and feedback about ways that I can improve my content and get it spread to a wider audience. I cannot thank Paul enough. So please, if you are not subscribed to him, go over and subscribe to his channel, watch his content, comment, like, all of that. He just produces absolutely fantastic content over there. With that being said, I kind of want to let you take the lead on this because you're more familiar with those analytics, narratives, those kind of things. I certainly have some thoughts on it, but I think you can address it in a more articulate way than I can myself.
Well, buckle up. I have a lot to say on it.
Let's go.
So my immediate reaction to that and the expanding of that I want to do here, because it's also, I mean, it's literally the basis and thesis of my channel. It's, I mean, you go back to my, my first times chatting with you guys on AOH's lives. This is literally the one note that I have. And so it just makes my day. It's just, I'm the happiest person in the world that this is now becoming a big thing. And someone as big as Paul is just really going at it, like the basketball show is, I mean, he's always had, it's not like he hasn't, I mean, he has for years, but to see it get the recognition, to see it get that many views, to see everybody really hopping on it, it's just the most exciting thing, probably to happen in the NBA. I mean, in the last 20 years. But so my view on it is what I want to expand onto it. I think it's 100% true that everybody has an invested interest in, obviously the league's success or, the league's continued valuation increases and, the dollars and sponsorships and gambling and all of the things. I mean, literally my first video was how the business model has changed, how the league makes money now. That's exactly the thing. So that is a huge part of it. But I also think that each one of these actors, each one of these relationships, each one of these participants in this have their own unique and, in my opinion, uniquely corrupt incentives for the most part when it comes to this stuff. ESPN's sort of basically everybody's got a different brand of bullshit is kind of the way I think about it. That ESPN has their own reasons for doing it. NBC has their own reasons for their version of the coverage. I think that each individual, Stephen A. Smith and Nick Wright and stuff, all these people have their own incentives, their own economic incentives is really the big thing for themselves personally, for their networks. I think it's beyond just network profit. I think it's way beyond that. There are structural economic motives, and there are clear and public financial connections between a lot of these guys that reliably predict what they do and how they cover things and what they push. And there's just 5 million of them to talk about. And obviously they cannot be discussed in one video. I mean, that's literally why I started a channel, just to go one by one until until something changes. But so, I wanted to kind of touch on some of those just to give a couple examples of it. Just for instance, right, the declining viewership, but and yet they make more money. Like, why is that? It's because they have very specific fans. They have very specific fans that are more valuable than general fan viewership. Like, fans loving the game is no longer the incentive. You want a specific group of fans that interact with the league in a certain way, but they're running out of that stuff, right? So the big push now, and the reason the valuation is going up, and the reason you have so many ginormous investors now coming in multiple aspects of the league. Just for example, you talk about Clutch Sports being a big deal. Obviously, we all know about that, right? But Clutch Sports went largely uncontested, other than rival agencies at the same level of Clutch. But now you got Goldman Sachs buying up sports agencies. Now, Goldman Sachs bought up Excel Management, another agency thing. So we're not talking about Clutch money anymore. Now we're talking about Goldman Sachs money. We're talking about JP Morgan Chase money. We're talking about the biggest investment banks in the world. We're talking about their money. Like, even LeBron's entire fortune of $4 billion, that's nothing to Goldman Sachs. You know what I mean? Like, they can leave that as a tip if they want to. So why is that happening? The main reason that they're coming in is because of the big push of the NBA abroad, the international push of the NBA Europe, the push into Asian markets, the push of viewership, the NBA Africa, the Australian pipeline. The push abroad is extremely valuable to everybody because of the economic conditions here. Domestic fans have mostly stopped watching. The few remaining ones are valuable to the sources of revenue for the league, the new sources of revenue for the league, but they still want growth. They still need more of them. International growth is easier to do than bringing back old fans, than winning back old fans. So as they've been pushing to Europe, the valuations of all these things have gone up and up and up and up. Actually, team valuations have more than tripled in just the last 5 years. Specifically because they're now positioning in Europe. And this isn't like a, sort of a conspiracy theory thing. They're literally building NBA Europe. This has been happening for the last 2 years. We expect it to go in about 2028. Will probably be the first season. A lot of the FIBA franchises, there's a big war going on over there between EuroLeague and NBA Europe. Everybody's trying to figure it out. The first round of bidding just closed, and all the major cities in Europe have bid to turn their franchises into NBA Europe franchises. So this is not like a theory. This is what is happening.
Right.
And that's what's been spiking the valuations, because this, works as an entry into international markets. But international markets have not received the domestic broadcasts for the last 30 years or 50 years, right? So any network that wants to push into that, or the more that the league wants to push into that, the more they need to create This is the greatest era ever. This is amazing. We've never seen something like this, because the audience, the new markets that they're broadcasting these things in, largely have not actually ever seen anything like it, because they didn't
Nope.
get the old games. So they have no idea. So not that, not that everybody over there, I mean, some people do, but it's about the same thing as the amount of people here that watch EuroLeague, right? It's just not anywhere near as much as the domestic audience. For example, obviously this is logical. I think that more people in Europe watch EuroLeague, more people in America watch the NBA.
For
Like,
sure.
for sure, that's how that works. So I think that's where some of that stuff. So like you can go one by one on these things, and that's what my channel does. My channel goes one by one on these things to specifically highlight the different incentives for the different people. But the main takeaway that I'm going to make a whole video about, I'm so inspired and so motivated by the Basketball Show's video here, is you do not need a conspiracy. Not everything needs to actually be some sort of intent-based secret cabal of, as I think as the Basketball Show put it, like dirty envelopes of dirty money under the
Right.
table.
Right.
If you have aligned incentives that are backed by enormous amounts of money, that's where the behavior will trend. That's what people will do. That's where those people, without anybody specifically telling them to do so, they will figure out, they will recognize on their own, oh, look, we make more money that way, or people get rewarded that way, or we get better deals this way, or, our business model survives that way, or hell, I get a better performance review at work if I do the following things. And these other things make that worse for me. Most people's behavior will trend towards the things that are incentivized. That's just always been true. It's the reason we have the word incentive. It's the reason we have the word economic incentives. Like when they are financial incentives, that's where it goes. So that's really, the thing I think to look at, like that and one deal with ESPN and how that affected carrying and carrying being called and travels being called in the league. Each one of these things has unique incentives there. And so, my channel sort of exists to specifically talk about those incentives. But, I just think there's so many layers and so many levels of what the Basketball Show is talking about. And the fact that Rich Paul went and made a podcast is the greatest thing to happen to the NBA of the last 20 years. Because now suddenly everybody has a take. Now people are paying attention to that. Now we're looking into Rich Paul more. Now we're looking into Clutch more. Now this stuff has been happening since 2010, but now everybody's starting to pay more attention to it. I really think this sort of backfired on them. And you even see it with fanboys. My last point here is that, you even see it with fanboys now trying to, they're already trying to get ahead of it to separate sort of Rich Paul from LeBron James. Like, well, that's Clutch, but that's an agent. Obviously, agents lie all the time. That's what they do. So can't really blame LeBron for any of the things that Clutch Sports did. And like that narrative is already starting, and I don't want to go down on that road right now. But we'll definitely have a whole live on that situation. But my point is that I think the tipping point has been reached. I think the tide is turning. I think that is actually happening. And I really believe that the future of this is what the Basketball Show was talking about, where independent media becomes the most reliable, more reliable, and the sort of mainstream thing tries to come in and tries to affect or to parrot whatever independent media is talking about. I think that's what comes next. So I cannot say enough good things about that video or about the Basketball Show itself. Like, everybody go check out the channel if you haven't heard of it. I can't imagine that you wouldn't, because if you know my channel, you definitely know his channel. But for what it's worth to the Basketball Show, if I can direct even one person over there who didn't know him before, even if that's the most I can do, well, then I want to do the most that I can do for the gentleman. But it was just such an outstanding video. So anyway, that's my entire take on it. I'm sorry that that's sort of a longer. No.
I think you really hit it on the head. I suppose what I will add my 2 cents on is I think he's absolutely right that the independent sports media analyst is becoming the go-to for people, where they know that they can get genuine, unpaid, unfiltered, unbiased commentary of what is actually going on, not what sports media, like on networks, is being paid to tell you or being incentivized to pay you. Also, shout out to Mark Book. I was going to say, good to have it back, man. Always glad to see all of you guys here. But I think that's why it's very important. Paul at the Basketball Show also just made a recent video where those talking heads on the TV are talking about his specific takes. And that's interesting. Like that's really fascinating that we're starting to garner that influence. And I mean, I'm not going to include myself in that. But you know, channels like AOH Sports and Fitness Rants, Basketball Show, Uncut Hoops, Uncommon Sense, like they have the viewership to spread their word far and wide. And even though it may not seem like it, that word is being heard. And I think the more that that happens, the more powerful that word is going to become, and it's going to be harder to ignore.
I think so. I think they're already having trouble ignoring it. I think they're already starting to, you see some of them now even like calling each other out, you know? So who was it? Called out Stephen A the other day.
Yeah.
You know, talking about that. And I mentioned it in our watch party, but I'll say it again. You know, and it's not like this is new, and it's not like this is new information. It's not like this is a new occurrence. But I promise I will have a whole video on it. I don't want to, you know, take up too much of y'all's time with it. But you know, Clutch partnered up. Clutch merged with an entity called UTA, which is a lot bigger than Clutch. I mean, big money stuff, big
Oh yeah,
big deal stuff that allowed them, you know, hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars that allowed them to expand their operations. But they have been trying to get into front offices. They've been trying to get. They've been able to sign more media personalities directly, such that they now, you know, represent talking heads in their contracts and their negotiations with the networks, as well as the players that they are talking about on those networks. And like, I don't know how that's not a conflict. Like, if it were up to me, I'd make that illegal. Like that level of conflict of interest is absurd. And you know, so there's a bunch to go into there in terms of that. But that's the kind of stuff that is happening there. So that's what I mean when I say that there are so many layers of so many different incentives behind so many different behaviors, and so much money being poured into it and being moved around. I do think that era is kind of ending because, you know, ironically, you know, we think of Clutch as the big, you know, the big bad mainstream, and ourselves as the independents. But compared to ESPN, if you can put yourself back into 2010, or 2012, when Clutch started, if you compare Clutch, especially at the beginning, and you compare CAA, which is the rival agency to Clutch that came into the league in 2006, if you compare them to things like ESPN or, you know, NBC or something like that, they were the independent guys. You know what I mean? They were the outside of the system people who then, you know, managed to gain all the leverage and become sort of the new system. But now that industry has attracted the likes of Goldman Sachs. Now that has attracted the likes of UTA. That has now attracted JP Morgan Chase. That has, you know what I mean? That has now attracted real, but you know, was it the Saudi sovereign wealth fund, you know, from Saudi Arabia? Like that dwarfs any kind of money, you know, that Clutch or CAA have, those kinds of groups. And those kinds of groups aren't playing those kinds of games. Those kinds of groups are more your sort of stereotypical, not that it's good, but they're your sort of stereotypical sort of private equity, you know, investment bank sort of general enshittifiers of things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they're not really trying to pull for one thing or the other. So it will make it shittier, but it will also, you know, hopefully at least limit the influence of such an extremely corrupt bias. You know, I don't know if that's better or worse. That's something interesting to talk about, but you know, I think that's where the future is going. But as that has grown, Clutch is losing more and more power. But what's interesting, and I left it in the comment forum too, is, you know, this is really my thesis here, is that this all started because the media was scared of independent player media. They were scared of Spring Hill. They were scared of Kevin Durant's The Boardroom. They were scared of the NBA players and front offices being able to independently produce their own coverage, their own limit access. They were, the decision was done independently. ESPN aired it, but it was produced, it was made independently. If ESPN did not air it, it still would have aired anyway. They would have done it themselves. They did do it themselves in addition to ESPN airing it. So the idea of player-based media scared the crap out of the legacy media. And that's what really changed everything. That's why I always go back to 2010. That's where it structurally shifted. But what changes that, I think, the future of that, it changes when they are more scared of independent fan media. When they are worried about what the discourse is on YouTube, when they are worried about what the discourse is on social media, on Reddit, on everywhere, when they're more scared of when independents have more, not just integrity, but have more attention or are driving discourse more than they are, that would shift the behavior. Yeah. So I 1000% agree with the basketball show that is why I think it is so important to show up for the channels, all the channels that Siberia's just listed, and probably 50 more that we can't even think of. Absolutely. But that's where that's so important. So, that's sort of my jumping off point with that. Obviously, just because that's literally what my entire channel is about. So I have a lot to say on that, and I could go through. I mean, I could blow my load right now. I could blow like my whole year's worth of content just right now, looking at the Clutch and ESPN takeover of ESPN and all that. Someone mentioned, though, I want to go back to a comment. Unless you have something there.
No, go ahead.
I want to go back to this comment here from Binary Bard 64. Says they don't want us back. It's interesting that you say that because they kind of do. Actually, that has been NBC's play. NBC is the one trying to get us back. That's why they paid $40 million to have Michael Jordan come and do his little leadership talks. That's why you look at their roster of who they have announcing the games. It's a lot of like nostalgic names. Even if, some of those names, like shout out to Reggie Miller, I guess, is very interested in lying to us, but they still want the name draw of, T-Mac is over there. You look at it, it's really built for nostalgia and bringing back the NBA on NBC, bringing back, the theme song, the Round Ball Rock, the basketball, that whole thing. So
they even AI Jim Fagan's voice to bring it back.
Exactly. So they're
definitely going for some nostalgia there for sure.
They're clearly trying to target sort of older, disillusioned fans who remember the days of NBA on NBC. I think that's the window that they see. I think they think that they can bring us back to the game, or bring us back at least to the coverage and stuff, to pick up all the people that have abandoned ESPN. I think that's what they're trying to do. I think that's their sort of target demo that they want to go after. And I think that because, not only does that, I think, make a perfect amount of sense with all the nostalgia stuff they're doing, but if you notice the ads that they play when you watch an NBC broadcast or you watch any of the NBC talking heads, all those ads are geared to exactly that demographic.
Yeah.
So, the sponsorships doesn't lie. If that's the reason that advertisers pay that money to run their ad there, is because that place has the demographic that they want to sell their products and services to. So that is a good way to tell who they're targeting. So who is watching, you can tell by the ads that you see on it. So I think that's what NBC is trying to do. I think they were initially a little bit successful, but after the initial hype and everybody curiously checking it out, does not seem, it's been a loss, every quarter since then, huge loss. But they're playing the long game. Their deal is until 2035. So, they're hoping that over the next decade. But that is an interesting avenue of hope. If NBC's ratings, if NBC's sort of coverage, if NBC's stuff works even a little bit, it would be very interesting to see if NBC, ends up putting pressure on the upcoming 2029 CBA. The debates around that will happen in 2028. If NBC will push on any rule changes, or bringing back, hand checking, or, getting rid of the 3-second rule, or, anything like that, that they think might be more appealing to domestic fans who have stopped watching. So NBC is the only sort of domestic hope for any pressure for any of that to happen. I don't think they'll be successful in it. It doesn't look like they're very successful in it now, but 9 years is a long time. Let's see. We'll see what they
It
do.
is. I mean, so I applaud them for their effort in the things that they can control, as far as the presentation of the game, bringing back that old time feeling of when people actually loved basketball.
Well,
But the
they did
problem
bring.
is,
Hang on, they did bring Reggie Miller. Let's not give him too much credit.
I don't know if they knew what they were getting.
They're letting Reggie Miller continue to say that stuff.
I mean, that's true. I mean, Reggie Miller is, a black mark against them for sure. But they can't change the game on the court.
Real quick, I do think that they're trying to come off as if they have both sides represented, and I cannot believe that Reggie Miller is going that hard on that side of it. But I do think that's where their logic is anyway. I disagree with it, but I think that's where their logic is.
Yeah, no, I do. I think so. I mean, it would be counterproductive for them to go hard at the modern era. Like, they invested their money in the modern era, with these contracts. Like, I don't agree with it, but I don't blame them for trying to push the narrative, that the modern game is better. I mean, they need to do that for their own profiteering.
Yeah, exactly. That's the lane where they believe that there is good money to be made. Because to be fair, that demographic has more disposable income than the demographic that ESPN has been chasing for the last decade.
Yeah.
And ESPN has learned that the hard way. They sacrificed. They had to give up. They couldn't afford to keep the NBA at the rate that they used to have it, much less the monopoly that they used to have on it.
Right.
They lost a lot of games, a lot of broadcasts. They lost a lot of inventory. They got a really bad deal for them because they just don't have the money. That's why they've had enormous amounts of layoffs. They had to sell a good portion of themselves to the NFL. They've pivoted and focused on the NFL because their stuff on the NBA just wasn't generating real revenue for them. So, it's those kinds of things though, but I promise I will do, I'm really trying not to overload the live. I'm sorry if I am, but it's like all of these things, are each individual topics that I will be going into much more deeply. But I mean, the basketball show is just dead on. It's not, It doesn't need to be a conspiracy between NBC and ESPN. They both have their own incentives for their own brand of bullshit.
For sure.
And it's true that overall, yes, they absolutely profit from the league moving up in other markets, in international markets. They both profit, all of them profit enormously by that. But they all have their own individual strategies for how to profit off of that often compete with each other. And I find that fascinating. That, to me, I've said it before, for the last, 8 years or so, that has been the only entertainment I've been able to have with the NBA, is looking at those things and watching how those things happen and paying attention to the news on that stuff in, SBJ or Ad Week or Ad Age, looking at the media side of that, the advertising side of that, the demographics of that, sort of the market research stuff. That's sort of my, professional background is in kind of those areas. So that was the last version of entertainment that I had with basketball, was just like keeping tabs to see if there's any sign of anything that could make it better.
Yeah.
And instead, it just made me more and more furious for years until I found, you guys, channels like yours and AOH's and all that, and and Sports and Fitness Rants and the Basketball Show and Uncommon Sense and Uncut Hoops and and 10 more that I'm not thinking of off the top of my head. But yeah,
true.
Dart, when he had his channel and all that, like that's Steam Engine, all those people. So I think it's I do, but I agree with the Basketball Show that I think the tipping point has been reached. I think the tide is turning. I think independent analysis, independent thought, independent media is now starting to carry more weight in the discourse than I think it ever did before. So I hope that trend continues, and I hope that brings about some kind of change. I do want to address this question here. Lost No More asks, Pineapple, are you a native pineapple or just shaped like one? I am a native pineapple. I was born a pineapple. I grew as a pineapple in the first place. So I'm very proud of that fact to be a native pineapple. Um,
You should be.
yeah, but thank you. So that's, sort of end rant there, but that's my whole view on that.
All we can do is hope. And I mean, part of the reason why I started this channel, I don't know, 10 months ago or however long it's been now, is because I felt like I had to be a voice for that change. If any change was to come, I wanted to be a part of it, and I wanted to be not necessarily leading the charge, but a part of that charge of saying, this is bullshit. I mean, because obviously there were many channels that were doing it before me, and there are many channels that do it better than myself. And that's not self-deprecation, that's self-awareness. Like, they're just offering more candid information delivered to a larger audience in a better way. And that's great. And I hope that I can inspire other people to do the same. There are a lot of people out there with so much knowledge, as we constantly see, excuse me, in our chats, where people have insights I never even knew about. They have knowledge of things I didn't know about. And, and I consider myself fairly knowledgeable. I want it to just keep growing and growing and growing until we're a force that you cannot ignore. And I just had to be a part of that. And I think to some degree, you probably felt the same way of like, I have this information, I need to present it to people because people don't know, or they're not as educated as they should be on it. Because it's important. It's important to the movement of bringing back real basketball. It's important to the movement of destroying the lies and the narratives of the current basketball. And it was just too important for me to sit on the sideline any longer. I couldn't do it.
Yeah, I mean, that's honestly, it was chat, it was you guys, it was guys like you. It was, it was the reception last year when I gave that little presentation on AOH's shout out to AOH on AOH's stream about clutchonomics, breaking down sort of the economic model, the business model of clutch sports and clutch rosters, and how they do that, and what that's done to sort of the middle class of the NBA. What's that done to role players? What's that done to teams and franchises, and how sort of the economics of that work. And man, the positive reception there, I thought for years nobody cared. And then, finding channels like that and then getting that kind of reception when I tried to speak a little bit about that, see, if people could just know that this is what's happening, know that this is what it is. It's all, it's all in public.
Yeah.
And everybody being interested in that, everybody actually caring about that, or at least knowing that some people actually cared about that sort of stuff, cared about that stuff getting better, hoped for it to get better, and we're equally pissed about those things. Is really,
for sure.
I was like,
For
okay,
sure.
well then maybe there are people. Okay, then maybe it's not a waste of time to talk about those things. Maybe people want to know more about it and want to call that stuff out more than I think. Maybe maybe there is an avenue where there can be some of that in the discourse, that people can be somewhat immunized or inoculated against that bullshit when they see it. That they could see it and say, oh, I know what that is. That's because Rich Paul did this, that, and the other thing. That's because Clutch did this. That's because NBC's pushing for that. I know why I'm seeing this, and not be sort of manipulated by these people who get paid $100 million to allegedly educate people about what's going on in the league. And yet they're saying that flopping began, 4 years after there was a fine for it. That's amazing. But and one more point about the old games when we were watching Magic Bulls in '96. There was foul baiting. Absolutely, they were trying to get calls from the refs. Absolutely, there was a couple of instances there where players, hammed it up, or they didn't throw themselves to the ground or throw tantrums in half court, but they did, try to sell the foul a little bit or get to the refs to complain, say, "Hey, man, hey, he hit me, man. What? How's that not a foul?" Or stuff like that. And the announcers from NBC were ruthless. The announcers were calling out the behavior in real time. Oh, there he goes, he's trying to sell the foul.
Yep.
What an idiot. You know what I mean? Like they were immediately calling that stuff out. And like, yeah, that's what you're supposed to be paid for. You're paid to supposedly go out on the road, go to all these games, announce these games, and call that stuff out, what's happening, to tell the audience at home who is listening on the radio or something, oh, look, off the screen where you can't see, that player is trying to argue with the referee and he's wrong, and that's clearly fake, and that's what he's trying to do, but the ref's not having any of that, to let us know that that's happening. So it's not that, that never happened. It's that wasn't rewarded, that wasn't lied about, that was outright ridiculed and called out in real time. Nobody respected that. It wasn't incentivized. Like none of that behavior around it was, existed. It wasn't incentivized by the league. It wasn't voted on by the league. Nobody proposed, lowering fines or any of that kind of stuff. So, that's what I want to see the return of. I want to see the return of calling that stuff out. I want to see the return of, disincentivizing that stuff, rewarding good behavior and, disincentivizing bad behavior.
Absolutely.
So I mean, these guys are supposed to be paid for it. So instead you got us out here, learning stuff from chat about it or learning stuff, doing our own stuff when we can outside of our regular lives because we're not paid $100 million to do this.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's backwards. That's backwards. It used to be that, I'm not going to go into that, but that's not how it should be. If you're making $100 million to report on this stuff, you should be reporting that stuff with integrity. It shouldn't be guys with other jobs, on nights and weekends or, when they have spare time that have to go and research this stuff and put together the whole thing and do graphics and video editing and learn the entire process to one man show this. Like, especially, we're not even monetized. I mean, we're literally doing this for free. I mean, it's costing us money.
Yeah,
that shouldn't be the case. That shouldn't be the case. There are networks, there are businesses, there are hundreds of millions of dollars that are supposed to be doing that job. So it's disgusting to me that not only are they not doing that job, they're actively doing the opposite job.
Well, and it's a representation of the systemic downfall of the game across all avenues. It's the league not holding the standard, the referees not holding the standard, the announcers not holding the standard, the coaches not holding the standard, the players not holding the standard, the media not holding the standard. It's all of those things together have destroyed what was once the greatest game. And you can't bring back one and fix the problem. Well, you can't fix any of them without acknowledgement that a problem exists in the first place. And that's the biggest problem that we face at this time. There's no acknowledgement of the problem. When you continue to glaze something that's broken, that's not going to fix the problem because no one is acknowledging the existence of that problem.
Well, they're all, as I said before, and I'll say it, until I'm blue in the face, they're all incentivized to keep that problem. They're all incentivized to create those problems. They're all incentivized to maintain those problems. And they're all actively disincentivized from doing anything about that problem. Sure. So, and that's what we're up against. You know what I mean? Like that's what we're up against. I do think, and we'll do it, I'm going to do a whole live on this at some point here, but maybe a video or something. But I do actually, it's not as hopeless as I think. I do actually think there are trends that are happening that have started in the last couple of years that I do believe that will change. It wasn't always like this. It won't always be like this. I think there are a lot of forces and a lot of trends that have the potential to make it better. What bothers me is that they're all going to take time. They're all going to take like 10 years to do.
For sure.
So, unfortunately, we got to strap in for it. But I do think that independent media, I do think, and not just in a sort of like rah, the underdogs will take down the big giant corporate. I actually think that money, big money, Goldman Sachs level money is moving towards things like independent media that, which I understand kind of makes it no longer independent media. But my point is that the actual capital is flowing in directions that make sustaining the current shitty incentives impossible. Like eventually those incentives are starting to change little by little, which will change that behavior. Will it be for the better? Will it be for the worst? We'll have a whole live to talk about that. But it is starting to change. We're coming out of this era over the next few years. What we'll be entering is, sort of anybody's guess, but
sure.
it is ending slowly. More slowly than any of us would like, but at least there's that.
I completely agree.
I mean, come on. Sorry, this guy. Lost No More. Thank you. That's a perfect segue because I'm running short on time. Lost No More wants to know if you guys had to pick a prime LeBron or a prime Sean Kemp to build a team around, who are you two picking? Well,
I mean, I can answer that question myself without a second of hesitation.
You're speaking to Mr. Sonics over here. So,
let's even take the Sonics out of the equation. I would never build any team around LeBron, period, because I'm not a fan of losing. So why would I wouldn't allow him to be on my team as a bench rider, let alone as, the main go-to guy. That would never happen.
So I have the exact same identical answer. There's no way I would build
a team. He's on my team.
And not be allowed. There's a discussion coming up with AOH that I hope everyone will tune into on exactly what it costs to build a team around LeBron, prime or otherwise. It is a gross cost. It is an unbelievable cost, and we'll be breaking down that a decent bit here coming up. But thank you. That's a fantastic segue to our last topic. Before I got to head out of here, I got to go pick up Mrs. Pineapple here soon. So, who is also native pineapple. Let me see. So, getting into the hurt feelings. Let's talk about these hurt feelings part 2. This LeBron not appreciated. Not appreciated in LA. But this is hurt feelings. There's no way they don't make a shoe for this. I'm sure everybody has seen it. Uncommon, shout out to Uncommon Sense, had a great video making fun of this stuff. But if anybody has not seen it, the quick recap is LeBron James felt supposedly LeBron James has felt very unappreciated in LA, and that's part of why he may not stay in LA. Last year was a different reason, and the year before that was a different reason, and every year is a different reason. But this is the current reason, is that he felt less appreciated than he felt he should have been. One evidence of that, one story about that, is that he wasn't presented with his game ball or the game, or rather presented with the game ball for his game where he beat Kareem's all-time scoring record. That game ball went to JJ Redick, and they had this nice thing for JJ. Like, his kids were proud of him, and they had them up on the screen saying, congratulations, Dad, and all this kind of stuff. And LeBron, didn't dress out, didn't dress into streets, just left in his in his warm-up gear, just with ice still on his knees, just left the stadium, went home, I guess, angry that they gave it to JJ Redick instead of him. And so it's part of why he doesn't want to stay in LA. First, well, actually, yeah, which angle do you want to go on that? Because there's a lot.
I mean, there are many. There's just a few different things that it's just him constantly talking out of both sides of his mouth, because he loves to talk about how he doesn't take winning or losing, or he doesn't take losing personally, because, there's, what do you say? There's 8 other guys out there on the court, 10 other guys. How many other guys out there on the court? It can't just come down to being his responsibility or his fault. But he wanted the game-winning ball because it was all about him. He wanted it to be about him, and it wasn't about him, and therefore he felt disrespected. He feels like he feels like he brought the Lakers back to relevance when I think they're just as irrelevant, if not more irrelevant now, because absolutely nobody takes the Lakers seriously anymore. They used to be a prestigious organization. They used to be probably one of the most prestigious organizations in sports, period. And now they're just considered a laughing stock. Like everybody says, it's a circus, it's a clown show, they're a joke. So how did he make them relevant? I'm failing to see it. And Uncommon really went into this. Like, what should they be grateful for? An in-season tournament, bubble ring that no one cares about, missing the playoffs multiple times, getting swept multiple times, like failing to see where they should be grateful to you at all, other than ruining their organization. And I mean, and no one should be grateful for that. So, I mean, those are kind of my immediate takeaways from that whole ridiculousness.
Yeah, man. I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, we've talked about it many times. We've broken it down many times. We've talked about it on various other channels, and other channels have talked about it a lot. Just, what is the record though? Like what is the actual record? How many years of that before you stop saying that stuff? Like how many years is it going to take? Like it's been 7 years now, right? Like, so how many years of, for the record, even the years that they didn't get swept, or even the year that they went to the Western Conference Finals, it's 7 seeds. You know what I mean? It's still play-in tournament years. It's still like none of this is like, they were the number 1 seed, but then something went bad, and so then they fell to number 5, and then they had a tough time because of some sort of legitimate reason. Like they barely got in the first place, and then lost, and then got kicked out. So it's not like it was an upset or something. Like people doing all this like Lakers in 5. It's like they're the 7th seed. What other 7 seeds are you doing this for? It's so ridiculous in every way. Like it just doesn't make any sense. Also, shout out to AOH in the chat.
Shout out to AOH.
Appreciate it. I hope you're enjoying it. I'm glad if you are. We're just we're just mentioning all of the things that we've talked about to death, and that we're going to continue to talk about to death, because they apparently bear repeating, because regardless of how much evidence is put out, regardless of how many debunks they have, how many points are made, these talking heads and Stephen A. Smith and all these people, Nick Wrights of the world, still keep pushing the same damn talking points year after year after year for the same failures year after year after year. And it's just, surely at some point you would make some adjustment to this, wouldn't you? Like,
you would.
Come on. Like,
you would. Or
you got to do something.
You would.
You got to do something, but I don't know. So
I said in one of my recent videos that it feels like we've been living in the Matrix, and there's a glitch, and the last 6-7 years we've just been on repeat as far as sports media. I mean, specifically the NBA. It's just been the same thing over and over and over again, and like it hasn't deviated almost at all.
No. Actually, the only real anomaly was the bubble chip.
Yeah.
And that is, it's a joke. It's an absolute joke. And,
actually, I need to mention this real quick. Angry Old Hoops, his most recent video, he breaks down how LeBron won that chip and how it was in thanks to COVID. So if you have not seen AOH's video, absolutely go check it out, because it is fucking fantastic.
But one thing that I've said before, when you talk about like what he's done for the Lakers, right, and fans of the Lakers, and how he made the Lakers relevant again and all this kind of thing, I just want to point out to the people who say this kind of stuff, the rosters churned up until 2023 to 2024. The roster they churned 70% of their players. Like the average year was 63% total. They come in with a bunch of guys. They bring in a bunch of guys in the offseason. They get rid of them in February. They bring in more guys in that February. And then in the offseason, they churn those, and they keep churning people so that they don't get past 2 years, because on the 3rd year, they get to have bird rights and they get a raise. By churning them out before that happens, That raise instead goes to LeBron with all his 1+1s. So this idea that like, well, look what he did for LA. Well, yeah, but LA as a team, what team? Every year, 60 to 73% of the team is not there. Whatever team, whatever LA roster, whatever LA team you were a fan of, 60 to 70% of it is not there the following year. That tells me that you only care about 2 or 3 names. You are not paying attention to the Lakers. You cannot sell me on the idea that you give a shit about the Lakers. Pardon my language. But you cannot tell me that you care about the Lakers when you only care about when only 2 or 3 of them are consistently there every year.
Exactly.
And the other 60 to 70% get churned like that. You cannot say that you are a fan of that team. That can't be true. Like, it just cannot be true. I refuse to believe that that's true. Like, I can't name any other team or any other sport where someone can claim that they're a fan of a team and not know a single person on that team except for 2 people. Like, you'd be laughed out of any bar, you'd be laughed out of any organized sort of thing, anywhere where people are watching stuff together. If you come in with that, oh, Lakers are my favorite team. Oh, who do you like? Oh, Rui's been great. Rui, I don't know him. I only know LeBron and Austin Reeves. Like, what?
Yep.
Like, no, absolutely. Like, and before that, Anthony Davis, or now Luka and stuff. Like, it's just not true. It can't be true. So that's a big thing. But the other thing that we're going to get into, not right now, but just to sort of tease it, that we've discussed at length many times, is what it costs. What does it cost? Never mind what it delivers, in that it delivers nothing, but what it actually costs. Like, what did it cost the Lakers? How much did they have to give up for these results? How deep does that go? And I'll go ahead and spoil it for you. It costs them everything. I mean, it costs them everything. It's unbelievable when you break it down, and we have the breakdown. AOH, if you are still in chat, I suppose I can tell you later, but if you're still in chat, I found the original research that I had done on that, like, I don't know, 6 months ago or something. I found that the document that I had all that broken down. So I'm locked and loaded, sir. I'm ready to go. But it's crazy how much it has cost them, and the damage that it's done to LA, and the damage long term. And the other thing that I want to mention is that LA has had quite the civil war happening for years that the media has not really covered very much. But there has been a civil war. Clutch has been boxed out of LA, increasingly so since 2023. In 2023, Jeannie Buss sort of pulls the plug, which, at the time she was the controlling interest. She was the family owner of LA, daughter of Jerry Buss, who, Showtime Lakers. That family, if anybody's not familiar with that. But so, yeah, she kind of pulled the plug largely on a lot of the Clutch influence and backed Rob Pelinka because of how expensive it was getting. And I don't mean expensive just in terms of like how much money it was costing them a year, and this is rich people's problems. I mean the assets that the Lakers had to sacrifice or mortgage in order to try to keep doing these things, which is why after 2023 and Pelinka having backing from ownership, suddenly we see Austin Reeves get bird rights. Suddenly we start to see faces, suddenly we start to see people stick around. Pelinka, if you look at the rosters, go to 2022 and go to now. That's all you have to look at. You can see the rosters developing. You can see the role players developing. You can see synergy brewing. Go watch all of AOH's videos where LeBron is not playing and how the Lakers play and the chemistry that they're developing. Pelinka has rebuilt that team without dropping LeBron. So LeBron's there and he never seems to fit. The reason for that is because they have not built around him since 2023.
Yeah.
And the other thing I'll say about Jeannie Buss there is that she voted in the collective bargaining agreement. She voted along with the 435 role players and the majority of owners in the league. They voted in that collective bargaining agreement to essentially ban the clutchonomics, the Clutch model of building teams, the way that you can build super teams, the way you can build teams, and the way you can churn rosters like that is not allowed anymore. They put a bunch more penalties on that. So they've had to adjust how they try to go about that. But so that's what I'm trying to show is that, you know, the Buss family, the ownership of the Lakers and Rob Pelinka has sort of year by year, little by little, been pushing Clutch out of that influence because of what it's costing the franchise and because what it would cost to the future of that franchise. So, you know, that's all stuff we'll go deeper into in other, you know, other videos and you know, lives and stuff that we talk about all the time. But I just want to toss that out there into this mix in terms of underappreciated and stuff. Yeah, to some degree, yes, because Rob Pelinka stopped appreciating him in 2023 and has been quietly trying to rebuild the team, you know, quietly, you know, outside of sort of the spotlight. And they have. And I predict that as soon as LeBron is off that team, the remaining members of that team have a formidable team. They do really well when LeBron is not there. So,
hey, real quick,
I saw 1 second, but $52 million is a lot of money to plug in holes in that rebuilt roster. So they will not be going through a rebuild period. They are already rebuilt. They will just make a couple tweaks with that $52 million. So anyway, end of my rant. That's my perspective on that. Angry Old Hoops asks if he can call in for 5 minutes. Sir, you are always welcome on this show. Are you kidding me? That's beyond friend of the channel. That is, you know, the encouragement that started the channel.
Yeah.
Give me a second to
one of the founding fathers of both of these channels existing.
Exactly. So give me a second to figure out how to do that, and then I got you. All right. I'm gonna send it over here somehow. All right. I put it in the chat. Feel free to call in. And if Mrs. Pineapple is listening, I might be a couple minutes late. But yeah, so we'll be doing a lot of those breakdowns. We'll be doing a lot of that. We'll be doing a lot of that stuff. Oh, I don't know actually which chat you're in. So.
Oh, I think he was in mine. I was going to say,
if you can click over,
let me drop it.
Links in my chat. Or yeah, if you can drop it, that'd be great. But yeah, yes, Binary Bard. I hope that you will be around for that. I hope that you'll check it out. But yeah, we've talked about these kinds of things a good bit, and you know, now I have a platform to actually try to produce a video to put it in there for history forever.
Yeah, I can't wait for that breakdown. I was going to say I'm excited for that myself.
Yeah, there's a lot I want to do with it, but I'm still, you know, had a teacher once tell me that your artistic vision is limited only by your technical ability. I'm still working on my technical ability on how to make videos and how to edit stuff.
I think, aren't we all?
But yes, that will definitely be a live discussion for sure as well. Because there's a lot of angles on that. There's a lot of tangents on that. There's a lot of things to go into with that. But yes, we will be breaking down all of these things one by one. That is literally the whole point of the channel, is to go one by one and just.
Yep. AOH, if that link didn't work, let me know and I'll send a different one.
Yeah, I'll just send it. AOH, send it to you in email, sir. If you want to call in. There, that should work. But yeah, how does the chat feel, by the way, while we're still talking about this? I've been considering the idea of taking in viewer calls. We haven't gotten a lot of, you know, crazy people in here so far. So I've been thinking about that a little bit. If y'all want to get your thoughts on, you know, thoughts out there on the stage, if y'all are interested in that, let us know. We might give that a try and see how that goes. Otherwise, aside from how well the watch party went and all that, next week, I think this Tuesday, we're going to be doing Sonics and Bulls. Someone was mentioning there that they always hated the Bulls for beating the Sonics. Well, if you'd like to relive the Sonics getting beat by the Bulls, hope to see you Tuesday evening.
Yeah,
we'll be rewatching that.
If you want to have a bummer of a day. You should absolutely join us Tuesday. It is the November 17th, 1990 game. It was the first game that I got to see Jordan play live. So it is burned into my brain forever. And probably the most meaningful NBA game I was ever able to go to. Maybe not the best game I ever saw, but the most meaningful game I ever got to see, and I was excited to have a watch party for it.
Yeah, man. All right, returning to the Lakers. Please welcome ALH.
Good afternoon. Good evening.
Hello, sir.
Hello.
I don't want to stay on long because you guys are flowing nicely. I just wanted to say this is exactly what I'm contacting both of you to try and put the amount of data that you're talking about into a visual that works. And I was, Pineapple, you like to do the numbers, you like to do the research, and Siberius, you've got the AI. And it's just like, how do you show people quickly just what the Lakers have burnt through? So I was like hoping for a visual that just shows all the faces Rolodexing by, while in comparison to other teams not doing that same burn through. Congratulations on your watch party, by the way. Thought it went pretty well.
It did. Yeah. Thank you for joining us for
it. How hard is it to explain how Clutch got in there in the first place? You talked about Pelinka getting Clutch out over time. Why did that happen? Why was that allowed to happen? And based on what you said about Pelinka, are you saying that his comments about we would love nothing more than to have LeBron back is absolutely nothing but lip service?
So I'll take that in two parts. First, on the latter end of that, yeah, I think it's all lip service. I think that's absolutely corporate kind of, no one's ever been fired where the company didn't say, we wish him well in his future endeavors. I think it's that kind of lip service. I think it's the sort of corporate PR, don't make waves, because he does have a lot of fans. I mean, he can't go out there and just trash the last 7 years of anything.
No.
So, publicly, I think that's what it is. But, the roster doesn't lie. The money doesn't lie. The agreements don't lie. Quietly getting rid of clutch players from LA and replacing them with non-clutch players, and then keeping those players long term. LeBron's poor fit into their sort of team strategy stuff. I think that's clear evidence of that, and their unwillingness to. The Westbrook trade, I think, is actually one of the biggest pieces of evidence for why that's completely lip service, because they could have expended, and there was some public dust ups about assets that the Lakers could have expended to fix the Westbrook year earlier, but they refused to. They just, nope, you got to live with this thing now. You guys made this happen. This was your show. You got to live with the consequences. We're not burning any more assets to fix your problem. And we're going to do this our way after that. And I think that's, that kind of thing, I think, is extremely telling that clearly they were not on board with Clutch's stuff anymore. So that's sort of my quick, off the top of my head, sort of strongest pieces of evidence for that. And then, so yeah, I think it's complete lip service PR. Just, everybody just quietly and politely be done with this. I hope that's what happens. I hope they don't sucker for, for whatever little ratings they think they can get on the next, for next year, but we'll see. And then in terms of how to succinctly put how Clutch got sort of its hooks into LA, is that sort of the nature? Is that the main?
Yeah. Because we're talking about.
You're gonna hate the answer.
Okay. Well,
everybody's gonna hate this answer.
Okay. Does it fit into the flow of your show, or is it too much of a side topic?
No, I mean, it fits in, I suppose. It fits in. It's just really sad. It will be very sad to everybody. And I wish I had more time. I have to pick up Mrs. Pineapple, but I believe. I think the incentives line up. I think the logic lines up. I think what we know publicly, what has been said publicly, lines up. I think what they've said publicly, and what's been reported publicly makes that case. in terms of if you want to lay this at the feet of an individual, it's Magic Johnson.
Oh
And
wow.
that's really sad to me. I think that probably is very sad to everybody.
Okay, so you don't have to answer today, but the follow-up question is why on earth would Magic Johnson be interested in bowing to Clutch Sports or getting on board with Clutch Sports?
So
This is good.
the deal on that, and this is all public, this has all been reported. There have been many insightful articles by very good journalists. And I'm, when we do a longer discussion of this, or if I make a video about it or something, believe me, all the sources will be there. For now, either take me at my word or pull up AI or pull up Google and fact check me in real time. But Magic kind of got a little reputation there. Magic was the head of basketball operations, president of basketball operations over there at the Lakers at that time. And he was much more interested in the entertainment side, in the spectacle side, the show of it, all that, similar to the 80s, similar to Showtime. Like he wanted to sort of he liked that aspect of it. He was not as interested and not as involved in the actual sort of day-to-day operations and roster stuff and that kind of thing. The day-to-day stuff he kind of left to Pelinka because he just didn't want to deal with it. He wanted to do sort of the LA thing. So that was him before LeBron, even hit free agency, before any of that. So the deal he struck with LeBron was he promised LeBron that he would get LeBron a championship within 2 years of LeBron joining. That's public. That's what he had said to LeBron. That's what he had sort of offered to LeBron. So my theory is that lines up. Again, this is now, we're now entering into my theory. That lines up very nicely with, okay, so we're going to get the player who has the biggest media company in basketball. We're going to get we're going to bring the whole Clutch and Spring Hill operation. We're going to team up with, one of the most valuable IPs in the world in the Los Angeles Lakers. And we're going to promote the crap out of this and make a new Showtime sort of thing, make a new big media ratings, behemoth in sports and in basketball. Then Magic has his fallout with Jeannie Buss. Magic has his fallout with the Lakers the following year after LeBron's first year. So, but they had already brought in, they had already started, Clutch was already in there. And so then Magic leaves, but Clutch still now has all the leverage because LeBron, now has that leverage in terms of extensions, in terms of media, in terms of his vague posting. Suddenly he's on the Lakers platform, so to speak.
Wow.
So suddenly he has an enormous amount of leverage. So I think that's where it goes. And they go with him on it. And to be fair, like the original strategies, if you look at them, like they're not illogical. They're not irrationally bad at the time. Like at first, like I could see being taken in by this idea of,
Right.
Let's try to bring AD over. Clutch has a lot of stars on their roster. We could totally put together sort of a second coming of Miami. Like I could see that being appealing. I could see that being an attractive idea in theory, never minding how it went in practice. So that's how I think that came to be. And then once that came to be, then they start having problems. And then, they start having problems going into the bubble chip. And that was kind of their last chance. Like, okay, if you're going to do it, this has to work. They expended most of their draft capital. They paid enormous, penalties for going over the cap and all that stuff. So they were well above the second apron. That's how, you put together the bubble chip. And they were too expensive to keep for the following year. Like 70% of the bubble chip team, or 63%, sorry, of the bubble chip team didn't come back the following year. It's too expensive. So that, I think, is sort of, off of the back of the bubble chip. I think he extends a couple years. The Lakers get, Clutch gets more leverage.
That sounds like Magic deserves more blame than Jeannie.
Yes, 100%. Because I mean, that's who an owner puts in charge of that stuff for a reason. That's the job. The owner is usually going to back that person.
Magic shit in the bed and then left it for someone else to clean up. Because I feel like Jeannie gets more public outrage than Magic.
Well, the interesting part about that is that he not just left it behind for someone else to pick up, left it behind for Pelinka to pick up. Pelinka was not ready for that. Like he did not have that kind of reputation, that kind of capital. Like he was not a huge name like that. He was, the second guy, the second in command who had to do that. So it's a big vote of confidence. I think he was somewhat neutral in the then Jeannie Buss Clutch stuff. He's just kind of just doing what he can and just following, he's the second guy. He has no leverage. But then the more they lose, and then AD and LeBron being injured, and the less results that pulls, Pelinka starts pushing more. He starts to gain his confidence, and then you see the Civil War kind of break out, and then Genie backs Pelinka, doesn't back LeBron, stops backing Clutch, and they have to live with their Westbrook mistake. Is kind of it. They wanted to trade more draft picks for that. The draft picks that they used to bring Luka were the draft picks that LeBron and Clutch wanted them to spend to undo the Westbrook deal. And they didn't fix that. They just let that go. I said, nope, this is your team. This is your roster. We'll do it your way. And you live with the consequences of this. And I think that was the nail in the coffin. And then, okay, now we're going to do it Pelinka's way. And, like I said, then you see them start to get bird rights. You start to see an old school style of rebuild, except with LeBron still there. Amazingly, which is why it's less and less fit every year.
But they're so patient
Right.
with it. I mean, they're sacrificing every year. I mean, our view on this is that LeBron James is an absolute hindrance. It's not like an innocent, we're building around him. It's like, this guy is preventing success.
Yeah. But from an owner's point of view, and again, I'm trying to just explain what their logic is. I do not agree with it. I'm just saying, I think the way they look at it, as long as the valuation is going up, there's no panic. Like if they're performing poorly, but the valuation is going up and attendance is still strong, and sponsorships and all that, as long as the revenue is going up, and that IP is so valuable. I mean, the Lakers as an IP can withstand a couple years of Westbrook or LeBron's bullshit. Like they're not losing any value there. So from Genie's perspective, my guess would be, we want to fix this. We want to protect the long-term value, but there's no need for short-term panic. We will just slowly move it in the direction that we want to. That's what I think their point of view, their point of reference is. I think that's what they're considering more than, say, us as fans who just want to see the team actually be good and give a shit and try.
Right.
Yeah. I would keep going. I'm going to get off. I'm going to let you guys do your thing, and I'm going to enjoy listening. Thanks for letting me call in.
Absolutely.
Thanks for coming. Anytime.
All right.
How much time do you have, PMR?
About 4 minutes.
Okay. So then incredibly quick, knowing what we know about what Pelinka and Bus were both doing, how does LeBron get that extension for his last year for $52 million? If they were kind of getting off of the Clutchonomics train, if they were kind of dismantling all of that, how does that happen? Because that's a huge amount of money for somebody that wasn't delivering anything. So how does that work into their scheme?
I would think if the ratings are not going down and they're not ready to do much after him, that's what I think. So the Lakers traded all the way to, I think it's 2029.
I think so, yeah.
So no LeBron is going to be a drop in viewership. It is going to be a drop of fanboy, which, by the way, I'm so excited for that to happen over the next couple years. I'm so excited for how many years that I've had to listen to this, this fake Lakers fan thing. This claim that I got the Lakers in 5, Lakers fan. This is somehow about the Lakers and not about LeBron.
Right.
I'm curious to see if they tune in, but I'm guessing that they won't, and I think Genie's guessing that they won't. I think the Lakers are guessing that they won't. I think anybody who has any money invested in this thinks that they will not. So whatever they want to say about it, let's see if they still watch the Lakers with LeBron not on that team. But so that's what I would guess. I would guess that that's going to be a ratings drop, a viewership drop.
Gotcha.
And also the other aspect of that is that I'll remind everybody that Jeannie Buss, this is sort of the deep stuff, but Jeannie Buss was preparing to sell a huge amount of her stake in the Lakers, and that happened this year. So if she was preparing to sell that, she's not going to risk, the valuation of that going down even a little bit. They're not. They're not going to risk I think the ratings going down even a little bit before she's trying to sell it. She wants to sell at peak value. She wants
Absolutely.
she wants to get as much money as she can for her percentage of the Lakers. She's still the governor for the next few years. Which someone had asked me before. I think it was you, AOH, was asking me about like what exactly a governor does, what they're responsible for, why that matters. That video there on the flopping, that's the kind of thing that I hope that answers, that there's a board of governors and that's the kind of shit that they vote on and decide. So she'll still be doing that for the next 5 years or 4 years now. But anyway, the point is, so that's why I think so. I think as long as the value was good or growing, she wasn't going to take a hit before selling her piece. Now that she's done with her piece, I would imagine that she's far less invested. I mean, she still has a piece of it. Valuation still matters, but she's made her big transaction. She's made her big move. So, but again, I could be completely wrong. I want everybody to be aware of this. I'm looking at these things from that perspective, from the finance perspective, from the economics perspective, from that sort of, ownership, finance, private equity, media perspective of that. For all I know, maybe they are persuaded by, maybe Rob Pelinka's in there right now making fantastic basketball or on the court arguments and has a great plan, and they think that they can rebound those ratings super quickly. I hope that that's the case. I'm just coming at it from that point of view for my best guess as to why we are where we are now.
Gotcha.
But,
I don't want you to be late, and I am a firm believer in always leave them wanting more.
I agree. I do want to shout out to a couple comments here. Make sure everybody gets their turn over here. JW says Magic was a great player. He was my favorite, but outside of that is
that's fair.
Definitely . Oh, one more fun little juicy piece of thing with that in terms of the Magic LeBron. Magic apologized to LeBron for having left and just kind of quietly just shut down and cut everybody out from the Lakers for a little while there. That was not a peaceful mutual ending there in LA. He apologized to him and promised him that he would find a way to make it up for him in the future. And it's amazing to me that it's Fenway Sports Group and the Magic Johnson led investor group that are both currently in vying for Vegas ownership. So you cannot convince me that the two of those are not going to merge and that Magic and LeBron are not going to be together in Vegas for that.
There's no way that doesn't happen.
That's a whole live. Well, I hate to keep saying it, but we will talk about that one day. But that is why I think so. In terms of that, yes, that continues. That is not the end of that story. That's only the end of that chapter. We still have years of that to look forward to.
Well, I think that's what's going to happen. Many, many, many lives to discuss all of this stuff.
Mark says here, Mark says, imagine having to listen to LeBron's media mouthpieces disrespect Kobe's legacy if you are Rob Pelinka. Yeah, well, he has some power to do something about it at least, but doesn't seem to do a whole lot. Or maybe this is him actually doing a lot. Maybe this is what it looks like. Maybe this is the most he can do. But that is, possible. And any real Lakers fan, that's the sentence that gets said by a real Lakers fan. A real Lakers fan has, I think, exactly that sentiment. Angry Hoop says, but they have Luka. How did Luka become chopped liver? Isn't it amazing? Like, Luka is the thing that they need. Luka is the answer to all of everything. Luka is the future of the league. Luka is the future of basketball, the face of the league. And he goes to the Lakers, and now he's useless, and that sucks, and he won't be able to drive ratings. And the Lakers, what are the Lakers going to be without LeBron? Even though, as AOH has shown, again, everybody go check out all of his footage on it. When it's Luka on the court and not LeBron, the Lakers do substantially better. So, make sense of that. But yes, those are all the main comments. I hope that everybody enjoyed it. Thank you guys for all showing up for that. I hope we gave you something of value. I hope it was entertaining. We'll see you guys again on Tuesday for Classic Game Night again. This will be Sonics Bulls 1990. Should be a really, really good time.
And absolutely. Please join us. But again, thank you everybody for joining us. Thank you, AOH, for tuning in, and also for joining us briefly to discuss this. We have a lot of things to talk about, and there's a lot more lives to come where we will do just that.
Indeed. Cheers, all.
All right.